The car industry is on edge. Trump's threatened tariffs could see up to 25% slapped on imports, potentially.
Tesla is a company that's growing from $32 billion in revenue last year to $51 billion this year.
The ongoing trade war with the U.S. drags on. Canada's automakers are feeling the impact.
In just a matter of hours, President Trump will unveil new trade tariffs. This comes after a flurry of on-again, off-again tariffs on goods imported from several countries, including Canada, on top of new automotive tariffs set to go into effect tomorrow on foreign cars and parts.
It came without warning, a bold move straight out of Ottawa that caught U.S. officials flat-footed and sent shockwaves through the manufacturing, energy, and trade sectors.
Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
Canada just made a move that could cost thousands of American jobs, and no one saw it coming. The White House is scrambling. CEOs are calling emergency meetings, and economists, they're calling it the most unexpected disruption in U.S.-Canada trade in over a decade. So what exactly did Canada do? And is your job next on the chopping block? Let's break it all down. Canada and the U.S. have always had a special relationship. More trade partners than rivals, more neighbors than enemies. But sometimes even the best relationships hit rough patches. And this is one of those times. In a stunning overnight policy shift, the Canadian government announced new tariffs, supply restrictions, and incentives that seem custom-built to give Canadian industries an edge, at the direct expense of American competitors. And this isn't just symbolic. From automotive to lumber, clean energy tech to agriculture, this move has already caused market ripples and rising tensions on both sides of the border. So what did Canada actually do? And more importantly, why? What Canada announced, the shocking policy shift. Here's what landed on the table. 1. A 35% tariff on American electric vehicle components entering Canada, including batteries, wiring harnesses, and semiconductors. 2. Increased subsidies for Canadian-made clean tech, including wind turbines and EV batteries, making their products cheaper at home and more attractive abroad. 3. A surprise export quota on rare earth metals, materials crucial to U.S. manufacturing, especially in defense and electronics. 4. A new Buy Canadian policy for public infrastructure projects, sidelining American steel and construction equipment in favor of domestic suppliers. In other words, Canada is protecting its own and leaving American industries in the cold. Why did Canada do this? The real motive. At first glance, it looks like a classic protectionist play, but dig deeper and the picture gets clearer and a lot more complicated. According to Canadian officials, this move is a direct response to recent U.S. trade actions, including the Inflation Reduction Act, which gave massive subsidies to U.S. green energy companies, but excluded many Canadian firms. Ongoing U.S. softwood lumber tariffs, a point of contention for over 20 years, and increasing pressure from Washington to dominate the North American EV market, potentially sidelining Canadian plants. Canada, in essence, said, if you're not going to treat us like partners, we'll stop acting like one. This is economic retaliation, polite Canadian style, but make no mistake, it's surgical, strategic, and serious. Impact on U.S. industry, the ripple effect begins. Let's talk about fallout. American EV manufacturers are now facing higher costs on components they import from Canada, or worse, supply shortages if those items become restricted altogether. That means production delays, rising prices, and possible factory slowdowns. Construction firms, especially in states like Michigan, New York, and Pennsylvania, which relied on Canadian steel and lumber, now face skyrocketing costs. Some contracts are being renegotiated, others canceled altogether. And in the energy sector, U.S. companies working on clean power tech are suddenly less competitive than their Canadian counterparts, who now get deeper government support. But perhaps the most painful hit is to American jobs. Unions in Detroit and Ohio are already warning of possible layoffs. One source inside a major auto supplier bluntly said, if this holds for 6 months, we're looking at real job losses and not just temporary furloughs. Real, permanent cuts. The political response from D.C. to damage control. Back in Washington, the reaction has been swift and nervous. the White House released a carefully worded statement expressing disappointment in Canada's unexpected and unilateral actions. Behind the scenes, lawmakers are furious, and trade reps are scrambling to negotiate a path back to pre-shock conditions. Some are even threatening counter tariffs. But here's the danger. Escalation could spark a mini trade war that neither country really wants, but might be unable to avoid. And with a U.S. election looming, no politician wants to look soft on international disputes, especially those costing American jobs. Economic experts weigh in, warning signs and insights. Leading economists are calling this a calculated gamble by Canada, one that bets the U.S. won't retaliate too harshly because it needs stable supply chains for its clean energy transition. Others say it's a smart PR move, showing Canadian voters their government is putting them first, especially in struggling regions. But here's the bottom line. Both countries need each other, and a long-term standoff could cost billions in trade and tens of thousands of jobs. Already, industries on both sides of the border are warning that if cooler heads don't prevail, the damage could last for years. What happens next? 3 possible outcomes. So what's next? Option 1, quiet back-channel diplomacy. Both sides de-escalate, tweak policies, and put on a united front again. Option 2, a full-on trade dispute. Tariffs escalate, industries suffer, and political pressure mounts fast. Option 3, one side blinks. Maybe the U.S. adjusts its green energy policies to include Canada, or maybe Canada pulls back some of its harsher moves. But here's the scary part. None of these options come without cost. The question is, who pays the price first? Canada's shock move didn't just ruffle feathers. It rattled industries, stressed alliances, and put thousands of American jobs in jeopardy. What started as a quiet disagreement over trade policy has exploded into something much bigger. A battle over economic priorities, national pride, and the future of 2 deeply connected economies. So yes, American jobs are at risk, and unless cooler heads step in, this might just be the start of a much rougher ride. Because when your closest neighbor draws a line in the economic sand, you better pay attention.